Everybody, welcome to our channel, our Scientology stories, Peeling the Onion. My name is Mark Fisher, and we've got a special tribute today, and we're going live right now. And I'd like to introduce my co-host, Janis Gillum-Grady. Hi, Janis. How you doing?
Hi, Mark. I'm good. Good day, everybody. Today, we have a very special tribute to someone who is very special and close to my heart that I've known since I was like 13, 14 years old. I have a lot of love and respect for this person, and he passed away last week, and that's Kerry Gleeson. Kerry's family, welcome. Jill, Brooke, Quinn, McKinsey, they should be all watching here, and I want to welcome them and give them my condolences for the passing of the head of their family. We have some special guests with us today. And first, I'd like to bring on Ira Chaleff, who has known Kerry way before I even knew him, since Kerry was 19, 20 years old, and remained Kerry's best friend till the day he passed. So, Ira, hi.
Hi, Janis. Thanks. I'm just not, I may have to do a little correction here. When you said Carrie, they lost the head of their family. Co-head, I think Jill.
Yeah, okay. Sorry, Jill.
Okay, and Janis, we've got our second guest is somebody that many of the viewers will know. Of course, he's a
Yes.
good friend of ours. We've knew him for many years, and he was on the Apollo. He was at Flag, and he was a spokesperson for Scientology for years. And of course, he's a star also of Scientology in the Aftermath with Leah Remini. And we want to welcome our good friend Mike Rinder. How you doing, Mike?
Hi, guys. Hi, Janis, Mark, Ira, and also hi to Jill and your whole family. And I haven't had a chance to talk to you, so I just want to express my, I guess the right word is sadness, but I was quite shocked when Janis called me last week, and I have a great deal, or had a great deal of affection for Carrie, and I have a great deal of affection for you, Jill. And my best thoughts and wishes are with you at this time. And I'm happy to be here and offer some insight into what I know about the life of Kerry Gleeson, who was a very unique guy.
He was.
Definitely.
Absolutely. Yeah, he was larger than life. For the viewers out there who didn't know who Kerry was, he was a significant figure in the history of Scientology and the Sea Organization. And then he moved on from there, and he was very successful later on in life. But most importantly, he was a great father, a great friend, a great brother. And, he just was an all around really great guy. So we thought it was fitting that we pay tribute to him so that he's well thought of and let his family know that we really cared about him. Ira, go ahead. How did you first meet Kerry, and tell some stories about Kerry Gleeson?
Sure. Well, I met Carrie in 1969 at the American St. Hill Organization. So what are we talking, 53, 54 years ago? I also, before I start talking about Carrie, I'd like to say something general, which is that I haven't been part of these online broadcasts before for a number of reasons. So some of the people who may be watching or listening in, or even who will chime in, may go, "Wow, he's still around. I didn't even know he was around." And frankly, some of them will have fond memories of me. Some of them may not have such fond memories, because as we know, we all kind of did some things that we're not so proud of now. When we were in positions of authority,
Right.
we had a role model who could be pretty fierce, and we sort of became somewhat like that role model often. Not so much Carrie, but I'm talking about for myself. So if there's anybody listening in that I owe an apology to, let me start with the apology. Okay, and then secondly, let me also say that, of course, while I met Carrie in 1969, we both exited the Sea Org and Scientology in the early 80s. So we're talking now 40 years ago. I think it's important to put this on the time track clearly, because it does tend to float in time otherwise, as people hear this. So, with that context, when I met Kerry, he was, as you say, he may have been 20 years old. I'm not even sure. And I became the commanding officer of the American St. Hill organization. And we pretty soon realized we needed to um, make some personnel changes. I needed a chief officer, or perhaps it was a product officer back then. I don't remember. And Kerry was kind of way down in the organization. I think he may have been tech services or something like that. But this was a guy who caught my attention. He never walked anywhere. He powered everywhere. Everything he did was in, like with this great intensity and tension. And not, I'm not saying with any harshness. I'm saying with
Yeah.
intensity and energy. And so I wound up intuitively promoting him over, the whoever the division head was and whatever, to the second in command, if you will. And I think it left a few kind of bruised feelings. But boy, that was the best personnel decision I ever made in my life. Because, frankly, it became rather easy to do my job with, Kerry bringing all the energy he had to his job. So that's how we first met. I'll save some of the more contemporary history to later on. I think you probably want to fill in more about the Scientology aspects.
Yes.
Fabulous. Okay, Ira. And then Mike, how about you? I mean, when did you first meet Carrie, and your recollections?
Just before we get there, Mark, you know that your slides are not showing up still.
Yeah, I did see that in the chat, and unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to use them. I can't pull them up.
Dear.
Anyway, there's a whole story on that. But anyway, go ahead.
Well, you know what? You can put them somewhere, and put a link to that in the description of this so that people can go see it. If you want, I'll put them on my blog. If you don't have anywhere else to put them, you can just send them to me, and we can put them up and put a link there. I first met Kerry when I had arrived on the Apollo in like late 1973 in Lisbon, and I was supposedly going there to do FEBC training, and then got told, no, you're going to be a deckhand. And I became a deckhand, and in very early 1974, I got sort of yanked off the decks and had to report to Kerry's office. And Kerry was the Deputy Commodore Staff 6 for PA. And I don't even remember what PA stood for, Janis. Pioneer Areas. That's what it stood for. Pioneer Areas.
Pioneer, yes.
Okay. And he said, I've selected you to join a shore unit that we are establishing in Funchal, Madeira. And I'm like, oh, okay. This was all meaningless to me. But he was like, he was the deputy to Diana Hubbard, and I was like this new, wide-eyed Sea Org member, and there's Kerry talking to me directly, and I'm like, wow, this guy's like really intense. I mean, I remember that was the first sort of thought that I had, was that he was like, he had piercing eyes and sort of drilled right through me, and like, you're going on the shore unit. And I'm, okay, yes, sir. And that is a story in and of itself, what happened on that shore unit. And I had little interaction with Carrie other than that one meeting, I think, and then a final briefing before we left. And the story of Madeira is Janis and I were talking about it just before this, is something that we should probably address as one subject, because
Yeah.
the end of the Madeira story is basically, we left Portugal, the unit closed down under less than ideal circumstances, one might say, and I arrived back on the Apollo, and Carrie had now become what was called the commanding officer of the Flag Bureau. And he grabbed me and said, okay, you're going to be my communicator. And I'm like, well, I didn't even really know what that was. Okay, you're going to keep all the dev tea off my lines. You're going to get me coffee. You're going to find people if I need them. And I began working sort of as Carrie. I mean, in the real world, you'd call it like a personal assistant. I wasn't really anything other than the guy that did whatever was needed to make it easier for him to do his job. And he had a little desk. Yes, Mike.
Yeah, Mike, I was just going to tell you, I'm going to remove myself out. I'm going to fix the slides. I'll be right back. Just carry on, okay?
All righty.
Okay.
Carry
Yeah, well, once you stop me talking, it's hard to stop. So he had a little desk in the tween decks, which was where all of the flag, or most of the Flag Bureau was. And I sat just outside of that, and I became like the gatekeeper, and I literally worked with him all day, every day. And I idolized him. He was someone that I thought was the perfect example of what a Sea Org member should be, because he was super, super smart. Like, his ability to sort of perceive or figure out what was going on was quite remarkable to me. And I learned an enormous amount from him about Scientology, but also about life. I was having some difficulties at various times. He wrote to my mother because my mother was giving me a hard time about something. And Kerry wrote to my mother to calm her down and tell her that I was in good hands and everything was okay. You know, I was 18 or 19 at the time, and my mother was sort of like, I don't hear from him, and he's off and he's disappeared. And Kerry wrote her a letter and sort of calmed everything down. And I don't know. I respected Kerry probably more than any other person that I dealt with in the Sea Org at that time. I established a lot of other relationships with people subsequently, but at that moment, in those very formative years of my time in the Sea Org, Kerry was like my guy, and the person that I looked up to and respected, and that respect remained for the entire time that I was in the Sea Org. I mean, I interacted with Kerry a lot, and in fact, you know, after we left the Apollo, I was Hubbard made me the external commade, and then Kerry grabbed me back and made me the supercargo of the Flag Bureau, because he and I worked together very well. And eventually, when I went into the Commodore's Messenger Org, he ultimately became replacing Bill Franks as Executive Director International. And that was at the time the most senior position in Scientology outside of the Commodore's Messenger Org. And L. Ron Hubbard had said that this was his hat that the Executive Director International was supposed to wear, the actual hat of L. Ron Hubbard, and had this. I'm sure you remember, Janis, Liz Ingber on that project forever to find the hat right up. And that
That's
Hubbard
right.
said he had done for Executive Director International. And ultimately it was whatever she found was converted into a policy letter. And that policy letter, called the Executive Director International, was what that job consisted of. And it was Hubbard's administrative role in the Scientology hierarchy. And that was what Kerry became. He became the big honcho, the Executive Director International. So
Exactly.
So, Mike, I'll just pick up on a few things here. So just to make sure that, we keep Kerry the person, like you told this wonderful story about writing to your mother. That's very Kerry. We also had some fun, and, we hardly ever took days off, right? And one day, somehow, when I was the commanding officer and Carrie was the chief officer, somehow we took off. We were in LA and we went to Disneyland. Well, you know how you could spend days in Disneyland getting through things. With Carrie, it took us 2 hours to walk at, triple speed between every single ride. And get on it and sort of take, days of experience in 2 hours. And I always remember a strange thing happened then. We went into the haunted house. And there in the middle of the haunted house was Princess Leia. And she was about, a foot tall, but she was there. And we were walking around her and we could see her from every side and she's talking. And I got a little freaked out because I thought, what's going on here? Somebody figured out how to trap a soul into, into this body. And I had never heard of the word hologram then. And it was only afterwards that I learned that this was a hologram. This was the first time we saw a hologram. And but it was just so much fun to do something like that with Kerry, again, exceptional.
Oh, sorry, Janis, go ahead.
No,
I didn't put my finger up.
I beat you to it. No,
I'm a
I want that
scuffler.
bringing up the fun of Kerry reminded me of the first time I heard of him. I hadn't met him yet because he was in Los Angeles and I was on the ship. And a telex had come in about how the group of people in Los Angeles were going to the samurai movies and were big into samurai, with the sword fighting and all that kind of stuff. And a report came in about how Kerry and I think Bill Foster and Alex Zabursky were doing sword fights in the office where there was a chandelier and they hit the chandelier or something. So Hubbard was all concerned about the chandelier and what are these guys doing into samurai? But it was just a whole fun thing that they were doing, that just go to the movies and then come back and act it out.
Yeah,
Well,
unfortunately, we did the same with Harrison Ford with the bullwhip.
I'm just trying to see. Can you guys see me and hear me now again?
Yes.
Yes.
All right, and how
And
about
we
the
saw a
slide?
slide.
Perfect.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
Sorry about that.
Janis and Kerry.
Yeah. Then there's Ira and
Carrie. Yep.
Now,
And
that's a
then
much
and
later
there's-
picture, of course.
Yeah. And there's Mike and Carrie. I just wanted to. So I've got the slides fixed. Sorry about that.
Okay, terrific.
Carry
Good
on.
job, Mark. Okay. When Ira talked about Kerry walking through Disneyland, that reminded me. He was the fastest walker I have ever met. Like, because he was tall and he had long legs, but he was also just fast. And he would walk, and I remember like sort of jogging to keep up as he would walk down the tween decks, or when we got off the ship, was walking down the dock, or if we were going to a hotel for libs or whatever. It was like I'm trying to catch up.
It was the same way. It was the same way between the Fort Harrison and the Clearwater building, or Fort Harrison and the West Coast building. You could not keep up. He walked faster than anybody.
Right. And I also thought of another great story of the start of the movies on the aft well deck.
Oh yeah.
Foster Tompkins was the supercargo of the Flag Bureau, and I was Kerry's communicator, or he was in external comm. I can't remember. I think he was the supercargo. And we had this idea of maybe we should get some movies brought in from New York. And I went to Carrie and I said, listen, we've got this idea that we could fly in a movie and show it on the ship. And Carrie was like, absolutely, yes, let's do it. And the first movie that you have to get is Patton.
That's right.
Because he loved that movie. He
right.
considered that George Patton was his like role model for how you never get stopped. You want to do something, you never get stopped. And George Patton was the epitome of that. Anyway, it became a long story. Kerry sent a request to LRH and Mary Sue saying we'd like to invite you to the movie. And then LRH sent $100 for, a season's worth of tickets for him and Mary Sue. So we could then buy the lens that we needed for the projector that we got from the course room that didn't have the right lens. Oh, it was a long, big thing, but that was the start of the weekly Friday night movies on the aft well deck of the Apollo, and everybody used to come, and we sold popcorn and Coke, and made enough money to purchase the movies and have them flown in from New York. So there's another little anecdote about the sort of spirit of Kerry, because he would get into that sort of stuff. Like it wasn't like, yeah, okay, you guys do if you want to do it, go ahead. No, when he had an idea that was something that he could get behind, he was like all in.
Yeah.
Yes.
I have a photograph I want to share from that time period, Janis, and this relates to stories about you.
Yes.
That basketball or volleyball?
Basketball.
Wow.
We put together a girls basketball team, and we played against the locals in Madeira and the Canaries and Lisbon, and we lost every single game. So Carrie came to the rescue and was like, well, I'll take over as your coach. So we fired Wendell Reynolds, and we hired Carrie as our coach. And this was probably in Tenerife. There's Carrie squatting in the middle of the picture talking to my sister. Next to her is Annie Broker. And then bending over with the hands on the knees. That's me listening in. But yeah, we even with Carrie taking over as coach, we still lost every game, but it was more fun. He made it fun.
And then I got another photograph here, Janis. Do you want to describe this photo?
Okay,
do you recognize that, Mike?
Yep.
From Roni, when the ship was sailing across the Atlantic. This is when we were moving ashore to America. So Carrie and a team was sent up to New York to the relay office, and you can see Carrie sitting there with a fireman's hat on, and to his right, holding a cake, is his wife Jill. And next to her is Diana Hubbard, and it was Halloween. And so they all dressed up for Halloween. And between Carrie and Jill in the leotards is Suzette Hubbard. And next to her standing is Biddy Biddy Tompkins. And then Mike, down there in the bottom left is your ex-wife, Kathy.
Yes.
Yeah. And Sharon Rice. So that was the group.
Who that is. I was like, who's that one?
Yeah, so that was the Halloween party at Roni while we were moving to America from the ship.
So he got in the spirit of things.
Yes, he got in the spirit of things.
Where do you get these photos, Janis?
They just show up. People send them to me.
You've got
They're
more
pretty amazing.
photos. You've got more photos. Like, I don't have any. I have nothing. The only photo I have of me from my time in the Sea Org is the one that Jim didn't, or the three that Jim Dinkelsey took in Madeira. That's it.
Right, right. No, well, I used to send photos to my dad, and they took most of my photos when I left. But my dad had a bunch, and then people just started sending to me. Kathy Kurataki gave me photos before she passed. You know, Paulette Cohen sent me photos. It was like, I get all these photos. So you haven't even seen half of them yet.
I'm sure I haven't, but they're impressive.
Go ahead, Ira.
So, just picking up the chronological thread. So I came to Madeira right after the rock festival. And, very often we would be called back to the ship under some weak pretense. But really, we were going to be, hauled through some ethics program, etc. So that's so I was there supposedly for something good, but it really was a committee of evidence. But after we set sail from Madeira, we had about, I forget, but it may have been certainly at least a week, maybe 8 or 10 day crossing to Bermuda, and
9 days.
9 days. And during that time, the statistics at the American St. Hill organization, where I'd been called from, plummeted. So when we got to shore and, got the new statistics in, that's all Carrie needed was some excuse to restore me and, cancel the committee of evidence, because Carrie always knew, who were his friends, who could produce, who were really in there trying. He didn't have this kind of vindictive piece that would often run, through the system, where somebody, would kind of turn on you, or maybe they didn't want to, but they felt obliged to because the committee of evidence didn't find you guilty. Then there would be a committee of evidence on them. A very, as we know, distorted, supposedly ethical system. So Carrie, Carrie, I always experienced him as above that. And, so as I say, he immediately sent me back, and, we had another good run at it. So that's a typical Carrie story.
I've got some more photographs here from that time period. This looks like he's doing some kind of event somewhere.
Yeah, I was told it was a sales talk.
Yeah, he could sell. He was a good salesman. Yeah. And there he is on the right, and that's Quentin Hubbard in the middle, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yes, and John Horwich on the far left.
Mm-hmm.
And that's Jill and Carrie.
Mm.
Yes, that was at Alan Buchanan's wedding.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'd like to bring up when Carrie, after the first time he came to the ship from Los Angeles, and he had to go back to America, and then he'd go to Boston and so forth. Every time he returned, he always remembered to bring the messengers Butterfingers. We wanted American candy, and so Carrie would always bring those to us.
I thought it was Reese cups. Reese's
those two,
Peanut
there's the Butterfingers.
Okay.
Yeah.
And is that Brooke with Carrie?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. Yes. It's interesting that
that's how I remember Brooke.
It's interesting that, this was, even though we sort of had our own separate culture, we were also part of the broader culture. So you can see Carrie dressing there and his hair and everything. He was kind of in a John Travolta look. He could have been out there on the dance floor. And later on, I felt he always developed more of a Richard Gere look. He was a good-looking guy. Now, this of course was actually the last photograph when we were all in good standing. So Carrie and Jill and me, and I was at Flag it was the first time when I was brought to Flag that I was really treated well. I was having some physical issues, and I had all the time I needed to study and get counseling. Bill Franks was the executive director in International then. I think that's Sue Anderson next to him.
Yes.
And it was really this moment of potential rationality, it felt like to me, when some of the strangeness seemed to be coming out of the system. Unfortunately, it was very short-lived, as we know, because very shortly after that was the mission holder revolt and everything that proceeded from that.
Right.
I just wanted to show a couple other pictures. This is Carrie on the far right over there. This is the International Management Organization, which came after the Flag Bureau and then eventually went back to the Flag Bureau, I think. But this is outside the West Coast building in Clearwater, and that was management in 1981-82. It's got names of the various different people in it. Here's a close-up of there's Carrie right there on the right. He was the commanding officer. And this was the time period that I worked for him and when I first met him. And everything you said, Mike, I completely agree with 100%. Kerry, when he walked into a room, you didn't even have to see that he was in the room. He had a presence. You knew somebody had just walked in the room without even seeing him. And he was always friendly, unlike somebody else that we know. When Kerry walked into a room, he'd always ask, "Hey, how you doing? Blah, 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 blah." And then he would actually, he'd ask how you were doing, what you were working on. Then he'd start going through your desk drawers. Do you remember that? He could start looking because it was one of the executive inspection things of order versus disorder. People who had disorderly things, they'd throw them in their desks so that you wouldn't see them. And he'd go through them and he'd go, "Oh, what are you doing with this?" And he'd put it out and all that. But it wasn't heavy-handed. It wasn't like David Miscavige, who would go in there and just rip your face off and you would feel like, 1 inch tall. Carrie had caring and he had empathy for the staff that worked for him. And that's what I loved about him when I worked for him. Go ahead, Ira.
So, Mark, I'm going to take this very important piece you just introduced and use it as a transition to his life after the Sea Org. This simple action of going around to people's desks, and it wasn't so much like surveillance, like what's in your desk. It was more like, let's see how you organize, and are you organized well enough, to be getting the products out that you were supposed to be getting out. And I believe that there may have even been, one of you may be able to help me with this. There may have even been this. It wasn't a major policy or an initiative, but this idea was introduced. I don't know if it came from Kerry directly, but he was the big proponent of work out with the staff member whose desk he was at. After getting them a little organized, work out what the next steps they were going to do to get their products and write a mini project plan. Does anybody remember that?
Oh yeah.
Yes.
Now, the one other thing Kerry took from that period was, again, there was one policy which didn't mean much with thousands, but there was one policy where Hubbard said, if you want to be lazy, do it now, right? Do it now. Don't put things off. Do it now. I don't even, you kind of, you don't seem to even be recognizing that. Kerry, when
I do. Yeah.
You do. Okay, so when Kerry left, let's go forward here now. Like many of us, when we left, we had little or no financial resources. We had little or no credentials that we could use, in the outside world. And we had to support ourselves. We had to support families, So here, Carrie and Jill and Brooke, they find themselves in Sweden because Jill is Swedish. And Carrie had to figure out, how do you make a living? And he came up with this idea that he could sell and promote marketing programs. And I guess it was through a friend of Jill's who was branch manager of a bank. This was the second largest bank in Sweden, called Handelsbanken. And this was a branch that in their region, big banks are divided into regions, and there was something like 60 some branches in this region. And this branch was like fourth from the bottom in terms of whatever the metrics were. So Kerry went in and he did this little marketing program, and the branch, after a little while, soared to near the top of that region. Well, this came to the attention of the branch headquarters, of the bank headquarters. So they called in Kerry, and he thought, oh, I'm going to sell them my marketing program. They said, we have all the marketing programs we could use. What we want to know is, how did you get these same people with no extra headcount to produce the results that you did? And he said, well, I just sat down with them and I had them organize themselves at their desk, and I had them work out little project plans to focus them, to make sure that, they were doing what was most important. And I came back a couple of times to make sure that they were doing it. And that's what I did. And the bank said, that is what we want. And that's how Kerry developed what became his personal efficiency program, which I can talk more about. Janis.
And he didn't even speak Swedish.
That's right.
He did it in English.
Wow.
Right.
Go ahead, Mike.
Just Ira, you just sort of bumped my memory about something. When you're talking about writing these little programs, one of the things that Kerry did that so impressed me was he had magnificent handwriting, and he used to write evaluations. And anybody that's been in Scientology or the Sea Org knows what an evaluation is. But he would write these evaluations longhand on foolscap paper. And he always had these stacks of paper. And paper was a commodity that was like gold dust on the Apollo. Like, nobody ever had paper. There was always, you had to go around and scrounge paper from people to do things. And Kerry would write longhand his evaluations on this foolscap paper, and then staple it all together and send it up to Hubbard. And I would be like, Kerry, like you could fill in more space on the page. He would just write. And when he got rolling, the writing would just be like intense and like going. And nobody was allowed to interrupt, because he'd lose his train of thought, because you can't write longhand as fast as you can think. I mean, you can type not quite as fast as you can think, but longhand, you lose your train of thought really easily. So these were moments that are sort of seared in my memory of Kerry writing it, and I couldn't believe how good his handwriting was for someone writing so fast and so much. And then I would have to deliver these up to Ken Urquhart's little nook outside of Hubbard's office once he was done, and they would be like this fat, sometimes like 3 staples worth, and then clipped together at the top. It just sort of again epitomized this person who did things the right way quickly, and that's what that epitomized to me. I was like, always, okay, all you other schleps are writing on the back of used pieces of paper and, mimeographed issues that have been printed on one side and writing on the other side. Nope. He always did it with clean paper and a nice pen, and it always looked really good when it got sent up.
All right, let me take that image of paper and build on it. So this personal efficiency program that Kerry then designed, this was really started in the days before email. It's still going, and it's changed, as technology changed. But then everything was on paper, and you would walk into somebody's office, and there were so many stacks of paper everywhere that the fire marshal would shut it down if they walked in. And so one of the things that Kerry would do is he would get a large one of these rolling bins to come in, and he would work with the individual, and he would say, okay, let's go through everything that you don't need, that's not helping you to actually do your work. And once they got started, first they were very timid. Once they got started, did the energy start flowing, and they would be dumping massive amounts of paper, and actually then getting themselves to an efficient workspace. So we had a lot of fun doing that, because we would go in people's desk drawers, and I always remember one woman who I opened up her drawer, and there were like 200 packs of soy sauce in there. And I said, why do you have so much soy sauce in there? And she said, oh, because I don't like it. You get the logic? and this is, so we would have so much fun because there would be all these, really strange things. But the important thing in terms of, understanding, I think, first of all, our common experience was we each had to go out in the world and find our way. And not only find our way economically, but find our way in terms of how did we add value in the world. And Kerry did a particularly really exceptional job of this. He first working with other former Sea Org members, and then with clients who became part of his team. He built up a network throughout Northern Europe of offices doing this program, the Personal Efficiency Program. And literally thousands, tens of thousands of people would go through it. And because of the way he structured it, the results were very immediate and often lasting. So he just de-stressed so many people's lives and taught us how to do that as well. And he wound up writing his book, which then came out in 3, maybe 4 editions over time. It got picked up and translated into about 20 different languages, sold hundreds of thousands of copies, and really impacted. It then jumped from Europe to the United States, to Australia, to Asia. He really, really left a very big mark. And part of the thing that I think is very interesting, he had to now do it in a organizational structure that was not based on command and control. We were in a structure that we were command and control. He had to relearn that, because that's not what the world would accept. That's not how you would attract people to be part of your team, and that's not how your clients would respond to. So he personally did a really fundamental transformation of how do you lead and how do you manage. That was really impressive, and I know I certainly personally benefited, as did a number of our former colleagues who picked up on this. So I could say a lot more, but let me leave it there and see who wants to ask a question or pick up a thread from that.
Okay. Here's Carrie. This is him at the Great Wall of China. This is after he left the Sea Org, I imagine.
Yeah.
Right. Looks like Indiana Jones, like you were talking about earlier.
Does, yeah.
Different movies and stuff. Go ahead, Janis. Did you want to say something? Oh, you put your hand up.
Yeah, I was putting my earpiece back in. It was about to come out, and then you'd
Got
find me on the floor looking for it.
Yeah. But, I was going to back up what Mike said earlier. Kerry Gleeson, he was the executive director international when he was finally, left Scientology and that's a whole other story that really is pretty messy and is not necessary. But I just wanted to back up one thing, which is that Scientology, whether or not you believe it was good or not, many people think it was bad, but whatever your opinion was, Carrie should have been the leader. He actually was running things. The organizations were expanding. They were opening up organizations all over Europe, all over Mexico, all over Italy while he was in charge. And then of course Miscavige and that all came in, and that just got all wiped out. Okay, so a lot of times on our channel, when we talk about the history of Scientology and the Sea Organization, we talk mostly about those time periods prior to that, because that's when Scientology was actually expanding, and we thought we were doing good. So that's what we're talking about. And Carrie, in my opinion, this is my personal opinion, when he was taken out, that was the end of it, because I actually was sent to the Rehabilitation Project Force. We talked about this afterwards, many years later, because I disagreed with what was happening to Kerry Gleeson, and I was labeled disaffected, and so therefore was sent to the Rehabilitation Project Force. And I was in a position where I was on the committee of evidence that was actually investigating Kerry Gleeson, and I didn't agree with what was being done. So I was gotten rid of, So he's just a very, very important person in Scientology history and the Sea Org. But Ira, what you say is just fantastic, because you know what? That's how he is. That's how he was. It didn't matter if he was in Scientology. He was successful in life.
And good credit to you, Mark, for taking that stand. That took courage, and it was very admirable. I'd also like to bring in, on a personal level, like Mike, you talked about, how much the difference he made to you on a very personal level. I know he has with Janis as well. Many of us who left the Sea Org had trauma, either ourselves or our children. There's a very sad statistic of many of the young men, particularly who were born and raised in the Sea Org, have committed suicide, and one of them was my son. And I did get my son out of the Sea Org while he was still a minor, and we had many good years together. But I didn't realize the depth of trauma that had occurred while he was in the Sea Org, without close parental supervision, and with some of the things that went on that we were too busy to notice. So they finally came back to haunt him. And to my great shock, because he wasn't displaying any signs of classic depression, he took his own life. When Carrie heard about that, he didn't even call me. He just got on the next plane and was in my living room. That is who he was. And I know he did that kind of thing for many people. When Kima died, when Mike died, Kerry was on a plane to help Kima. And I'm sure there are so many stories like this that no one of us know about. He was a true friend.
Absolutely.
Yes. Well, when Paul was dying, and after Paul passed away, Kerry couldn't jump on a plane, but he called me every single day just to check on me and make sure I was okay throughout that whole period. And it was very relieving to get his calls and talk to him, have someone as a terminal I could talk to.
Yeah. And it was the same. Relationships were so important to him. Here is a guy, he created this international network, and he managed the whole thing just by himself and an assistant. That was it. He never, didn't want a big organization. Yet he would talk to every single one of his country heads every week to see how they were going. And he never missed a birthday. He just tended to relationships. And one of the great things that he and Jill did, I don't know how intentional this was, but it worked out brilliantly, was they moved to Florida and had a large, comfortable home, with lots of bedrooms and a swimming pool, and all these colleagues from who were freezing their butts off in Sweden and Norway and the Netherlands and the England and stuff would come to Florida, to be with. We'd have conferences and things, and so he really knew how to create a bond in his work family, as well as, of course, being the pillar of his personal family. I do want to say that he traveled a lot because that was his work, and I did as well. And my daughter talked to me recently, and I spoke with his daughter Kenzie recently, and we weren't there all the time because we were traveling and doing our work. But when we were there, they really experienced us being there. And Kenzie was sharing with me how just she felt so much consistency in her life that she always knew she could talk to Dad, and he would be there in her corner. Whatever else he brought into Scientology or came out of Scientology with, he was a caring individual who knew how to be strong in the world, businesslike, even tough when he needed to be, but never, ever lose his heart. So,
well said,
Yes.
Ira.
you, my
Yes.
friend.
Mike, have you got any other comment before we bring in? We have a guest that's going to pop in here.
No, I'm reading the comments that people are making, and I'm happy that we have been able to impart to some extent who Kerry was. I think that a lot of people have no idea, particularly from his history in the Sea Org. I think that anybody, sort of the general view in the world is, well, if you were in Scientology and you're in the Sea Org, you were crazy, and you were probably an asshole, and you probably mistreated people, and you probably did that. And many of us did. And as Ira said, that's the sort of that's the survival way of being. It is the winning valence in the old Scientology terminology. And somehow Kerry managed to not fall into that hole and not be like that. And yeah, I'm sure that there are plenty of people who have stories about things that they feel he was too harsh about or mistreated them in some way. But generally, I think that if you went back and surveyed the people who had interacted with Kerry, that they would have a way more positive view of him than the vast majority of Sea Org executives who have ever existed in Scientology.
Right.
And
Yeah,
Exactly.
I totally agree.
and that is something that I'm happy to have helped impart. I want his children to know that. I think it's important that people learn about things like that, and particularly immediate family members, and hearing it from other people rather than just Jill or Kerry is, I think, a really important thing to happen. So I'm very appreciative of being able to spend this time to do this. I appreciate your views of this, Ira, incredibly, and you too, Janis and Mark, but Ira in particular, because you bring something to this particular subject that I had no experience with. I didn't work with Kerry after the Sea Org, and I didn't really have much interaction with him other than the one time he and Jill came to visit us. And that's what that picture was from, Mark, when Kerry and Jill came to visit us here. So no, I didn't have anything else. I didn't want to hog all the time, and I know you got some other people that want to say something. So
No, thank you very much, Mike. This is the picture you're talking about here.
yeah,
Mike and Carrie right there. But yeah, no, we appreciate you, Mike, and you too, Ira. We've got a guest I'm going to bring in here right now who wants to make a brief comment, and some people may know her. Janis, you want to introduce Spanky?
Yes, Spanky Taylor. She knew Carrie. She knew a lot of us. She was right there with us. So Spanky would like to say a few words. So let's bring Spanky on. There she is. Spank.
Hi, y'all. Thank you for allowing me to view and so warmly. And the only thing I want to say is very brief, is that the kindness he showed to me was just unsurpassed. He was one of those CR executives who was so kind, showed me so much kindness and so much caring and so much humanity, which was a rare occurrence. There were no class, as I say, and so and some of the most for me, Carrie always was there or reached out to me and helped me so much, and I loved him and loved Jill and Brooke and Mackenzie and Quinn, and I send you all my love and thank you, guys, for the nice tribute you gave to Carrie, and I love him and I love all of you, and thank you so much. That's it.
Great. Thanks, Spank.
Thank you so much, Spanky. Thank you. We appreciate it. And then we've got one other person here that I was going to bring in here. Hold on. Sorry about that. Technically get in here. We have another friend of ours who also wanted to say something, and that's Karen de la Carriere. Janis, do you want to introduce Karen?
Yes, Karen is a long-term friend of all the old timers as well. She was on the Apollo with Carrie and myself and Mike and Ira. And she's been a lot of people watching this will know Karen. She comes to all my different parties and events. So, and she's my stepmother in that she used to be married to my stepfather.
And here's Karen.
There she is.
Hi, everybody.
Yeah, we can hear you. Go ahead, Karen. Hi.
Ira and I had 3 full days together reminiscing in England when we went to John Jack's wedding. God, Ira has stories. Ooh. Mike, of course, was known all over the Apollo as COFB's calm. In those days, there was no instant messaging. You had to run around the ship to do everything. It was all legs and hands. And can you imagine a life without any kind of internet? Or seems so there was no, you couldn't relay a message without taking your body there to deliver it. Anyway, and Kerry Gleeson was everything Miscavige is not. He was kind. He was benevolent. People keep talking about how he was there with his piercing blue eyes. Well, he had presence. You'll never get a photograph of Carrie blinking. He didn't seem to blink. He just looked with those blue, his eyes probed. I wanted to tell you that Hubbard one day decided that there was too much stat push going on, that the execs were into stats, although he wrote the policies Thursday to Thursday. You're as good as last week's Thursday to Thursday, 2 p.m. stats. But he said he wanted a process done to knock off the determination and fanaticism on stats. and he wrote a specific thing, and I was ordered to do this on Carrie, Alan Buchanan, and a couple of others. And Howard really, I mean, he wanted this done now. I had messengers waiting outside my auditing room because Howard wanted to see the result of what I did. So Carrie walks into the auditing room. I obviously won't go into the session, but I got these piercing blue eyes. I thought, wow, this, and it was blinkless. He was absolutely just a sweetheart. Here's an example of why I say that. In 1976, at the Flag Land Base, we used to actually get Christmas presents in those days. And the Christmas present this time was a cassette, the days of cassette. And L. Ron Hubbard had autographed 200 of them, and they were all numbered. We had to stand in a long line at the big Fort Harrison auditorium to get our Christmas present. We got cash, and then we got this L. Ron Hubbard autographed cassette from Gold. And the line was long, and Carrie was standing in line quite near me. And the line in front of him saw him, COFB, is the top of the totem pole in management. You couldn't get higher. There was Ken Urquhart, but Ken was a communicator. Carrie was the leader. And much of the line went, here, sir, trying to bump him to the top of the line out of respect. Just respect. The cult of Scientology has always been a hierarchy. You bow to those senior. There's a hierarchy of who you salute, who you bow to. So the line asked Carrie to go right to the top, not stand in line, because he was CO, Flag Bureau, top of. And this is just a tiny little anecdote, but Carrie didn't use his clout or feel, I should go to the top of the line, I'm COFB. Carrie shooed away this and wanted to stand in line just like one of the guys. Look, it's a minor anecdote, but it shows that Carrie did not have the bravado and the arrogance or the feeling that he should go to top of the line, even though he was top of the line in terms of post. And I always remember that. I always remember that as just a small gesture, but it showed so much how Carrie was. Kind, but everything the cult does not have. Kindness, benevolence, granting of beingness, all these things. So anyway, that's it.
That's a wonderful story, Karen. We really appreciate you being here.
Thank you.
Thanks for being here.
Yeah, sure thing. And Mike?
Okay. Oops, sorry. I took her out by mistake. I'm sorry. Here, go. You're back in, Karen. Sorry about that. Go ahead.
Mike,
Yes, Karen.
1,500 to 2,000 rare Sea Org photos. I let Janis copy my entire collection. If you need old Sea Org photos, reach out to me.
All right, ma'am.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Karen. Okay. Anyway, so that was a great story about him as well. I want to show just a few more pictures of his family. We only have a few questions because we're going to end off here in just a few minutes, but I wanted to go ahead and share some pictures. That's Carrie with Hana Eltringham and Jill Gleeson, of course.
Yeah. Hana was going to come on and say a few things, but she was having some computer problems.
Oh, okay. And then we've got that's Janis's sister Terry with Carrie. Terry with Carrie.
Yeah, Terry and Carrie.
Carrie.
Yeah, and this is in Fort Lauderdale when we came back from a cruise, Janis. I remember this. Go ahead and who's in that
That's
photo?
right. From left to right, it's Terry, my sister, and then Jill Gleeson, the lovely wife of Carrie, and then myself in between Jill and Carrie, and then Karen de la Carriere, Liz Gablehouse, and Hana. We'd all had a little get together.
And that's me on that same day with Carrie.
Yep.
And then this here, Janis?
Yeah, this was at my house here in 2019. There's the twins, Quinn and Mackenzie, with myself and Carrie and Jill and Terry. Yeah, Carrie and Jill had Brooke, who was in the Sea Org with them. And then after they left the Sea Org, they had twin girls, Mackenzie and Quinn. And there's Carrie with all the girls of his family at the beach. You know, I was there in March and saw Carrie and Jill and Kinsey and Brooke. Quinn was in California. But every Saturday, they would go to the dog beach and take the dogs. And the dogs would just go crazy like a bunch of little toddlers running around the beach. And Carrie and Jill and the kids would just have a great time watching the dogs. And there's a whole little beach community there that he got to enjoy every Saturday morning. There's Carrie.
That's Carrie. Now, somebody asked how old was he when he passed. I think he was almost 75, or was he?
70.
Yeah, he was just short of 75.
I think
He looks so vibrant in these photos too. It's
74.
so sad that he's gone. 74.
Yeah.
He just looks so vibrant when I saw these photographs, because that's how I remember him when I saw him. That's him with his dog, right?
Yep.
There's Carrie and Jill.
That's a great one of Jill too. She looks so beautiful there. And that's Carrie sitting on his back porch, his favorite place, the back porch. And there's docks down there, or waterways. And he would just sit there, and there's the waterway, and boats would go back and forth, and people could walk past. Really nice, peaceful area.
Fabulous. I'm going to go ahead. There's just a few comments and some questions and just a few, and then we'll be wrapping up here. This is from Jeanette Barnes. Love to Carrie's family and friends from Sweden. He will be greatly missed. Wasn't Jeanette Barnes, wasn't she on this ship with you guys?
Yes, and she's like best friend of Jill. And when I was there in March, Jeanette flew down from Sweden and hung out with Jill and I and Carrie. We had a great time.
Okay, good. Next question. This is a question from Argo Serlin, the Basque seat. Question, Ira, do you remember any of the people in charge of the ranch in Mexico for the kids?
no, I don't have any information about that. No.
Okay. And we already answered those questions there. This is from Danielle Chamberlain. Hi, Danielle. How you doing? This is a comment. Love to you, Ira, in remembrance of Sky. We love you. You know we do. And Mom will be sending you a huge hug.
So mom is their dear mom, Jenny, who is just this very, very sweet soul who passed a couple of years ago now. So thanks so much, Danielle.
And then one more from Danielle, which is a memory. I distinctly recall Carrie holding fort with all the messengers on the ship one day in the tween decks with hoots of laughter around him.
When I first read that message, I misread it, and I thought she said that Carrie was holding fart. And, oh, that would be Carrie. Yeah.
He was always one for fun.
Anyway, that's all the questions in the comments. We want to tell everybody we appreciate y'all being here. Does anybody have any last comments before I'm going to go through the business real quick? Go ahead, Janis. Anything else you want to say?
No, I just my love to the family who's watching, and I will see you probably in January or February, whenever you have the celebration of life. Let me know and I'll be there. And if there's other people who want to be a part of that, just email me and I will coordinate with the family as to who you are, and so that they're not swamped with anything from this.
Okay. And also, just want to let people know, please subscribe to Mike's channel at Mike Rinder on YouTube.
Look at you, Mark.
Yeah, he's the man. You know, he dwarfs us in terms of number of subscribers. But yeah, we appreciate you being here, Mike. And then also, please subscribe to our channel at Mark Fisher and Janis Gillum Grady. We're at 9,100 or something. We want to get to 10,000 subscribers, then we can do fundraisers and things like that. But please, if you haven't subscribed to our channel and you're watching us for the first time, you know, we do historical stuff. We've done interviews with Ken Urquhart. We've done interviews with Biddy Biscavige Blythe, with Neville Chamberlain, lots of different people, Mitch Brisker. So, and, you know, just go to our channel and there's lots of great things to see there. And we appreciate it if you would subscribe. Yes, Janis.
Yes, and Mike and I will be doing one of these days to cover the Madeira Rock Festival that so many people want to hear about.
Yes, we will.
And then Janis is one of the
Thank
things that
you
we
so
always
much,
ask
Mark. Thank you, Janis.
Oh, yeah. Oh, great.
For
Ira,
this
we're really
tribute.
happy to be here. Yeah.
Thank
Janis,
you.
what's
Yes.
the other thing we want people to do, Janis?
We rock slam the like button.
That's right. We rock slam it on this channel. Make sure you rock slam Mike's too.
Oh my God. Yeah, pound on that, pound on it.
Anyway, we hope you enjoyed our tribute to Kerry Gleeson, a wonderful person, a wonderful man. And like I said, like I'm going to repeat what the others have said. Jill and family, we love you. We send our love and condolences to you. And we
Yes.
hope you enjoyed this show and this remembrance.
You know,
we want to thank. Yeah, go ahead,
Mark,
Ira.
let me just say one more. I'm sorry to
Yeah, sure. No, go ahead.
step on your closing, but I realized I don't know if you can see this, but this is a
Oh, yeah.
this is a picture of Carrie and me with Jay Hurwitz and Ron Hopkins, and the four of us remained deep friends, you know, for all these years. And Jay, at the moment, has flown in to be with Jill and the family, supporting them. So I just want to acknowledge them as being so important in Kerry and his family's life as well.
Wonderful.
Well,
Absolutely.
you guys did a great trip around Spain together, right?
That was a picture of us in Seville
Yes.
just before
Yeah.
COVID. Yeah.
Janice, as a matter of
Yeah.
fact, I remember the last time we were in Florida visiting Jill, Carrie was on that trip with you, Ira, and in Spain. Remember, he called in and we talked to him on the phone.
Right.
That's right. Yes. Yes. I was trying to think, where was Carrie? Because I was looking at the pictures. There's Paul and I, there's you, and where's
Yeah.
Carrie? But okay.
All right.
Anyway, I want to thank Mike. Mike, thank you so much for coming on our channel and being part of this. We really appreciate it. And same thing to you, Ira. And that's all we have for now, folks. Until next time, bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.